Good morning, and chapter 30, and they're about to burst from dark matter space with the AXA craft behind them. The radiation storm behind them flickered, and from its depths burst the Skyhawks who were chasing them. This time there was nowhere to hide. Every option was blocked. They were trapped. "This is the AXA craft Sunfire," Frolix called desperately on the comm. "We're on a peaceful mission and we..." BLAM! Without warning, a torpedo hit the Sunfire full on, and this time they had no shields. The dark matter drive crackled, sparked, and burned out. Lucky tried to get back into the astrolabe, but it was no longer connected to the Sunfire. He had no control of the ship. They plunged down towards Charon, drawn by the planet's gravitational pull. Frolix struggled furiously to keep the ship in space, but it was out of control. Flames scorched their sides as they fell into the planet's atmosphere, down through the layers, losing altitude all the time. Charon looked totally white from above. Its surface was covered in ice. It seemed a cold place, a hard place, a terrible place to crash. "Strap up tight," yelled Frolix. "This is going to be bumpy." The Sunfire shook and juddered like never before as they plummeted through the whiteness. A blizzard raged around the ship, hurricane winds buffeting them. Frolix grappled with the dark matter drive, trying with all his might to bring it back online. "That's something I've got to try," he said. "I never did this before, but..." He flipped his fingers over the controls, and with a great ripple, the silver strings that crisscrossed the Sunfire's crescent wings unfurled. They caught the wind between them like a parachute, and they began to glide. Lucky could feel the descent slowing, but it was still not enough, because now on the vid screen he could see mountains, cabins, bunkers, blurring by in the blizzard. They were still falling too fast. Excuse me. "Watch out, folks, here it comes," warned Frolix, bracing himself, and the Sunfire crashed into the planet Charon. The hull ruptured as they smashed into the surface. The impact ripped open the underbelly of the ship. It sheared off both wings, snapping the steel strings, leaving them fluttering like ribbons. The Sunfire skidded and thudded along the ground, a trail of shattering metal sparkfire in its wake, tearing apart, breaking up on impact. And finally, the Sunfire rolled over and over and shuddered to a standstill. Everything was upside down. Every surface was broken. Smoke and steam was rising from the wreckage. In the cockpit there was silence. Dust swirled before Lucky's eyes. He hauled himself to his feet. He felt dazed and unsteady. He was beginning to shake. He was bruised all over, but at least he was alive. Which was more than can be said for the ship. The cockpit had cracked open. The vidscreen was fractured. The dark matter drive was smashed to pieces. Frolix's huge bulk was hunched forward over the wreckage, ominously still. "Frolix!" called Lucky. He leapt towards his friend, but Frolix's starry eyes were open. He was alive too. "Did we make it?" he gasped. "You did good," said Bixer, "but now I think we might be in real trouble." She was looking at the fractured vidscreen. It flickered on and off, buzzing, broken, showing only flashes of the view outside. An army barracks in the snow, AXA troopers in military uniforms, marching towards them, fast. Bixer's needles buried themselves in her hair, but she stood up. "Mystica," she said. "We've got to get Mystica." She helped the captain to stand. He was unsteady, but he could still walk. The living death had not yet destroyed his body, only his mind. They clambered down from the cockpit and picked their way through the wreckage. It broke Lucky's heart to see the state of the Sunfire. In the main cabin, the vidscreens were shattered, the cathedral columns and vaulting arches flattened. Mystica's pots and pans were strewn out across the deck. The spherical silver seats were crushed flat, while the hammock where he'd slept hung upside down like a limp flag. They staggered on through the smashed-up corridors. All the ship's curved lines were at jagged angles, broken now, not connecting anymore. "Mystica," called Bixer as they stumbled onwards. "We're coming." No answer came back. They burst into her quarters. The low gravity had gone. The air felt heavy. The old lady lay sprawled on the ground, unconscious, her body bent double. The golden rings were scattered about the floor. Frolix put his ear to her chest at once. "She's alive," he said, "but her heartbeat's weak. We need to get her out of here in case the ship blows." He picked her up in his great arms and carried her. She looked so fragile in those massive, muscled arms, but Frolix held her with infinite gentleness and care. Bixer led them into the main cabin and threw open the ship's hatch. Freezing wind whipped into the warmth of the Sunfire. And out there, the AXA army was waiting, tough, tattooed troopers in body armour and cloven hoof boots, with huge horns and burning eyes of flame. The cannon and ground blasters were all aimed at the Sunfire, and the ship was still smoking, steaming even in the blizzard. Flames lapped around it, consuming what was left of it, the carrion birds, like carrion birds after a kill. Nice simile. Lucky and his friends staggered out of the hatch. Their beautiful ship was now a pile of wreckage strewn in the long trail behind them. A silent tear rolled down Frolix's cheek. It froze there on his face, a solid tear of ice. Darn chilly. Snow was knee-deep on the planet's surface. It was freezing cold here, a deadly cold Lucky had never felt the likes of before. It seemed to cut through him, through his clothes, skin, flesh, blood, right down to the marrow of his bones. In just a few seconds his hands were utterly numb. He couldn't feel his fingers. A bit like the classroom with the windows open. All he felt was unbearable guilt, because he was the one who brought them here. He was the one who'd steered the Sunfire into a radiation storm in the desperate hope that he would find Charon and his father on the other side. And he had found Charon, but at what cost? An AXA trooper crunched towards them through the snow, a powerfully built woman whose face was studded with metal piercings. They raised their hands as she came before them, cannon cocked, proud authority in her stance. "You were evading capture," she said. "What were you doing so near the human fleet? Are you spies?" "Of course not," said Frolix. "I keep trying to tell you guys, we're on a mission of peace." "Peace?" spat the trooper, her eyes burning like hot metal. "This is no peace. There is no peace in this galaxy. Not anymore." "But we're no threat to you," pleaded Bixer. "These old people here, my grandparents, they need help." The trooper wasn't listening. "By all the 12 Astreus, I don't have time for this. Take them away," she ordered. "Take them down to the caves." Doesn't look good.